Vladimir Putin does not want a war with the West. He's not prepared for it, doesn't want to go to war with us. There is no evidence at all that he wants to reconquer Eastern Europe, the countries occupied at the end of the Second World War. Far from it. That's more trouble than it's worth. It's a losing proposition economically. He's not interested in that. We're the ones that have pressed this issue with him. We're the ones pressing to the East. He's not pressing to the West. He wants to negotiate an end to this, but if he can't, he will go as far as he needs to in Ukraine to ensure that his country is secure. Now, I think we should intervene along with our allies. We should offer to hold talks, no preconditions, drop all this nonsense about the Russians have to commit national suicide in order to qualify as partners for a negotiation. That's a lot of nonsense. We need to treat them as equals, not as enemies. In fact, I worked with the Russians in the early part of this century when I was at Supreme Headquarters to Allied Powers Europe, and I interacted with them when I was on active duty in the 90s. The Russians did not behave like enemies. In fact, they bent over backward to assist us when we were dealing with Islamist terrorism, provided us with enormously important intelligence. We could never have gotten into Afghanistan the way we did without their help in 2001 and 2002. So I reject this notion that the relationship that we have with Russia must be hostile. I don't think it needs to be. Doesn't mean we should become bosom buddies and friends, but we need to understand their interests, which was essentially President Kennedy's argument. They are willing to understand ours. All of this is about interest. This is not personal. This is not an emotional fight. This is about interests, and you're absolutely right. We have no core strategic interest in this area, nor should we. But we do have an interest in ending conflict. That's what we should be focused on.
And what about the geopolitical implications of pushing Russia closer and closer to China, which is happening with this war?
You know, China and Russia have become natural partners for reasons that have nothing to do with us. And that's simply because Russia has an abundance of resources, an abundance of food, minerals, timber, you name it, coal, iron, everything that China needs for its scientific industrial expansion lies in Russia. Russia alone can largely fuel China if that's what it comes down to. At the same time, Russia needs secure borders in the east. As you pointed out, Russia has had wars with Japan. Russia was conquered by the Mongolian hordes. It wants peace in Central Asia. It wants peace on its borders. And contrary to popular belief, having been in that part of the world, I can tell you that there are not hundreds of millions of Chinese anxious to move north and live in Siberia. That is not an appealing idea for them. So the notion that somehow or another they should be at war with each other is nonsense. There's no reason for conflict. They've buried the hatchet. They want to do business. By the way, even the Japanese and the Chinese have largely buried the hatchet. They're not going to go into a war with each other. They understand how mutually destructive it could be. We've got to get out of this war business. Now, that doesn't mean we'll never fight again. But the problems that we may face in the future don't need to be in Eastern Europe. They don't even need to be in Northeast Asia.
When President Biden made a statement that he thought we needed regime change in Russia, and then Lloyd Austin in 2022, who's his Secretary of Defense, said that one of the objectives, the mission objective in Ukraine was degrading the Russian military force and exhausting it so that it can't fight anywhere else in the world. Would you consider that an objective, a military objective, exhaustion?
No, I mean, it's absolutely absurd. It's ridiculous. How are you going to do that, and why would you want to bother?